Incredible flavours, even better stories. One pour, 10 minutes, Aussie bourbon lovers sharing bourbon with Australia. It is so exciting that we're here. We're joined, H, by Dr. Blake Layfield, the Master Distiller and Head of Innovation and Blending at Maker's Mark. We're in the Heritage Room, and there's some amazing stories about this room. We're at Star Hill Farm in Kentucky. There's so many good things about today. The weather is unbelievable. We've had a good lunch. We've had an amazing tour here. Blake, thanks so much for jumping on our podcast with us to talk about...
And thanks for hosting us.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
Thanks so much for coming all the way from Australia. That is quite a journey, and I'm glad that we geo-engineered the weather.
Yes.
Just for you to have the absolute perfect day. But we are in the Heritage Room. There's so much that makes bourbon unique within the history, the heritage, the culture. There's so much background that makes each brand unique and distinct and different. And I think that this brand has that in spades.
So much going on, right?
Maker's Mark was one of the first distilleries we visited when we came to America a few years ago, and it's where we fell in love with bourbon. So it's really great to be back here.
And it's the stories that happen in this room, right? The burning the recipes in this room.
Yeah.
In this room.
Right, this is so crazy. It's so
amazing.
Crazy. I love it. We love it. And we love the beautiful bourbons that you make as well. Tell us, it's unusual for us to have 3 glasses in front of us for one of our episodes, but there's a really good reason for that. Can you tell us what have we got here?
Yeah, so we're going to actually taste through 3 different things. So the first thing we're going to taste is where everything starts for us, which is Maker's Mark cask strength. We have made Maker's Mark's cask strength since 1953, have had the same mash bill, the same yeast, the same fermentation, the same distillation, the same maturation, and that all starts with Maker's Mark cask strength. And for many, many years, we've had consumers beg, cry, plead for an older, age-dated version of Maker's Mark. But we didn't do that because it fundamentally went against our founder's taste vision.
Right.
And that's what we're going to taste in glass number 2. We're going to taste an over-aged Maker's Mark in a traditional warehouse.
Something that the founders didn't want us to taste.
Something that would be outside of our taste guardrails. So you get to see what isn't a bad whiskey, but why it doesn't meet our taste vision, our house style.
Yep.
And then we're going to say, okay, well, how did we do that? How did we make an older, age-dated version of Maker's Mark, but in our way that honors and respects our founder's vision in our way? So we're going to get to actually go on that journey together.
Okay, let's get into it. What are we starting on the...
Amazing. So we're going to start on the left. This is cask strength Maker's Mark. This is aged for 7 years and 3 months. We like to call this the distiller's spirit because it is uncut, unfiltered, right from the cask. And at 7 years and 2 to 3 months, it is really the pinnacle of the founder's taste vision. So I like to think about tasting in 2 ways. Most people like to tell you, do you get the caramel and the vanilla and the oak? Those are really specific to you. Those are called character notes. They're based on your background, your experiences, who's trained you how to taste, and how you associate specific characters with flavor. So if I say caramel, I might be thinking of a very sweet State Fair candy from the U.S.
Yep.
Highly sweet. You might be thinking of a Werther's Original from your grandma's closet. I'm not sure if you guys have that.
Yeah, we have. Yeah. You nailed it.
I thought that was a cool candy.
Definitely.
But they're different caramel flavor profiles, right?
Yep.
So we like to think about essence within my blending team. So think about when you go to smell the spirit, does it have intensity and velocity when it comes out of the glass? So smell it. Do you really have to bury your nose in to get it, or does it jump out to you quite naturally? And then as you're starting to smell it, does it have complexity and depth, layers of flavor, or is it quite singular in that? So as you go to taste, this is a cask strength, so take a little taste and then take a little breath after that.
It's beautiful and smooth.
Let your mouth kind of get used to the alcohol content. Our cask strength is generally around 54 to 57% alcohol by volume. If it feels a little warm, that's what we call the Kentucky hug.
Yeah.
But think about that flavor, and does it match what's in the aroma? So does the flavor have the same characteristics that were normal, or is it disaggregated? And we'll talk about that as we get to some of the other samples. How does it coat your tongue? Does it creamy and have viscosity and layers, or is it somewhat kind of slick and does it go right off of your palate? And then does it hold that intensity of flavor for a long period of time on the finish? And is it something that we all have one common response is, do I like this or not?
Yeah.
So that's what we think of like as the essence of a spirit. But of course, in any American whiskey, and in bourbon in particular, you're going to get caramel, you're going to get vanilla, and you're going to get oak. And you're going to see that quite boldly expressed in this. But for us, quite uniquely, we have a bit of a cherry note. So think about a bright citrusy type of cherry. That's unique from our yeast strain. We have a proprietary yeast strain, and that is quite articulated in cask strength.
Yeah.
And then we are a wheated bourbon. Most of the category is made with rye. Wheated bourbons are a very small portion of the overall bourbon category. And what wheat brings is it brings a viscosity. We call it a creaminess. There's that weight on your tongue. And that finish that you get is a spice note. And you commonly hear people talk about spice with bourbon, but they're talking about rye spice, which is black pepper, clove, and fresh cut grass. That's the type of spice note that rye really brings for you. Wheat brings a different type of spice. Think about your holiday baking spices, your cinnamons, your nutmegs, those warm holiday spices.
Like Christmas.
And that's what like Christmas in a glass. That's really what you feel in the back palate. So you really see that expressed, especially on the finish.
Yeah, it's kind of buttery almost, the way that it's kind of sits on the
makers doesn't
glass.
use any rye, do they?
No rye. So we were 70% corn, 16% soft red winter wheat, and 14% malted barley. So that inclusion of wheat is quite unique, but also the high percentage of malted barley is also quite unique. At 14%, most bourbon distillers use 5% or less malted barley.
Yeah, amazing. And it's funny, the velocity is a term that I've only recently learned about, because that thing of like, often I nose a bourbon and I'm really digging deep to try to get something out of it. Or sometimes it's really whacking you in the face as you kind of put your nose in the glass. But you're right, the velocity just seems to meet you right in the right place with this. It's like, I'm getting characteristics out of it now, but it's not whacking me and I'm not having to dig for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's lovely. Yeah. Beautiful. And so in the history of makers, was it ever kind of bottled at a cask strength kind of before, or was it always kind of brought down to about 90 proof?
So from 1953 all the way through 2010, we only made one product, and that was Maker's Mark Classic at 45% alcohol by volume. Yep. So the original founder's taste vision was Maker's Mark Classic. It was meant to be warm, pleasant, inviting, something that you didn't have to work to like. Something that it was just very easy for you to enjoy. And while Bill Samuels Sr. designed all the aspects of the liquid, Margie Samuels designed all the aspects of the package, from our signature wet wax drip to the shape of the bottle to even the smallest nuances, like this little kind of incision in the neck here, which makes a beautiful glug, glug, glug sound.
No way, is that
is quite unique to Maker's Mark. So she really thought through all of the touch points from our name, our symbology. So we like to think of it as something that has substance and style, something that looks good and something that tastes even better. As the bourbon category continued to expand and really explode 2010 onward, we did start to open up with new innovations. But our first innovation was actually Maker's Mark 46, where we took cask strength Maker's Mark, we took 10 seared virgin French oak staves, and we submerged it in that cask strength Maker's Mark for 9 weeks at a cool temperature, 10 degrees Celsius or less for 9 weeks. And that really amplified the caramel and the spice notes. And we had a little bit more alcohol content to it. I know it's called Maker's Mark 46, but it's actually 47% alcohol by volume. There's another fun story for another podcast on that one. But that after Maker's Mark 46 came out, that's when we started to offer cask strength as well to our customers and consumers.
That's incredible, and we love it.
Yeah. Amazing. All right, great. So we'll move along. What's in our next glass for lot here, Blake?
So as I mentioned, our founder's taste vision is to make products that are warm, that are inviting, that are pleasant, something you don't have to work to like. One thing that occurs with American whiskey is we use new casks. We use new virgin charred casks. So those casks are extremely active. And that is quite unique within the global whiskey category, because Canadian whiskey, Scotch whiskey, Japanese whiskey, they can all leverage used casks, meaning they can have been used before 1 time, 2 times, even 3 times. And they typically have a very different climate than we have. Here in the States, our traditional warehouses can go from between 0 to 40 degrees Celsius. So it can be a very wide range of temperatures. Now, Scotland, for instance, 10 degrees Celsius or less. Year round.
I mean, mostly.
So it's a very narrow band of temperatures. So aging occurs very differently due to their cask selection and due to their climate. So for us, in American whiskey, age is not an indicator of quality. I'll say that twice because people love to think if it's older, it must be better. And I like to think about it like I think of people. You probably know some people that are quite old, but that are quite immature. And in American whiskey, it actually becomes immature in the sense that it becomes quite singular. The oak starts to take over at a certain point in time, and it's different for each distillery based on their mash bill and their entry proof and how they manage their inventory. But older does not mean better, because what happens is in American whiskey, it smells amazing. You'll smell that glass, and I mentioned smell it and think about the complexity and the layers. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Yep.
But then when you taste it, it's absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
It's disaggregated. The flavor does not match what's in the aroma. It's super singular, and that means it's super simple. And that singularity is oak, and that oak goes very tannic and very dry and bitter and astringent. And a lot of people have, I would say, acclimated themselves to understand that flavor profile in American whiskey is what an older American whiskey is supposed to taste like.
Yep.
And we fundamentally think that they're wrong. And so this is a debatable point. This is my personal opinion, our personal opinion as a brand house, because our house style to make things that people don't have to work to like.
Yep.
And astringency and bitterness is an acquired taste, just like coffee.
Yep.
Most people, when they drink coffee, like I drink black coffee, but when I started drinking coffee, I probably had a lot of creamer in there, and I kind of worked myself down from that. I acclimated to that bitter flavor profile. And so what I want you to taste is an 11.5-year-old Maker's Mark, fully aged in a traditional warehouse at cask strength.
Okay.
And I want you to think about those principles we talked about. Aroma, flavor, do things match, and think about that back end and that finish.
All right.
It hits you a lot harder.
The velocity?
Or just the nosing it. I'm just like, whew, compared to that one.
Yeah.
Velocity is your new favourite word, Dave.
Wow.
So it's an interesting experience, right?
That's an interesting experience.
So you wouldn't say,
I don't not like it.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that, Dave. Because that's the common reaction we get. Because I don't think we make a bad whiskey here. And I'm not saying that this is bad whiskey.
Yeah.
It's just not to our house style. Because on that back end, what do you start to get?
There's the tannins, it's the bitterness. Yeah.
That bite afterwards, like the aftertaste that isn't particularly great.
And the tingly tongue tannin thing that happens a bit with that kind of the bitiness.
Absolutely. It's very drying. Like I feel like I wish I had a glass of water. Like I kind of want to take a sip and to get it out of my mouth.
Yeah.
This is such an educating conversation. I've had whiskeys like this before.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that was wrong. And I suppose it's not necessarily wrong.
It's not wrong.
It's just a
It's
different
a choice.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It's kind of like, the nose really hits you in the face. And then when you have it, it's quite confronting.
Yeah, so I mean, it's got a lot of great notes into it. It does have a lot of the velocity. It does have a lot of intensity. It does have some of the notes that we like. It's got the caramels and the vanillas more on the burnt side, but quite bold. But it is disaggregated from it. As you actually go to taste it, the aroma doesn't match.
Yeah,
the flavor
it's like completely different.
It's
what it knows
very
what it tastes.
oak driven, and on the back end, you get that bitterness. And if you want to wash something out of your mouth, like you want to get it out of your mouth, it generally means that subconsciously you don't like it.
Yep.
Like I want to get this out of my mouth.
Yeah.
I want to sip something else behind it to remove the flavor that is currently in, and that's against our founder's guideline.
Yeah.
The finish is kind of funny as well because it's all around the different
dry.
parts of my mouth. Is that dryness? I think.
Yeah. I'm getting dry right at the back. It's like you're saying. I feel like now you need the glass of water.
I have to taste all my whiskies again now that I know. I'm going to have a very
It's
busy
not
summer.
a wrong choice. It's just a choice. It's our house style. It's our way of thinking about whiskey.
Yeah. That's amazing. And so
people who like that oakiness, it's that they like who really like older whiskies. It's called, the oakiness is obviously a flavour they've either trained themselves or come to like.
Correct.
There you go. I'll let you ask the question now, Dave. Sorry.
well, I was going to ask about, because I know, Makers kind of infamously the last kind of team that still hand rotates barrels. So what, in this case, because this barrel's done something a bit strange compared to the other barrels.
Yeah.
What's happened with this barrel? Started for the first few years at the top of the rickhouse and then got rotated down, and then what happened?
So we're actually famous for saying age to taste, and that's why I tried to give context of why you shouldn't think of age as the only driver of quality. So for us, we have a very low entry proof in, so we enter in a 110 proof or 55% alcohol by volume. Sorry, I am American, so I like to use confusing units of measure. We would like to do anything other than use the metric system. So we enter in at a low entry proof compared to the rest of the industry. That gives us a sweeter profile. We only use barrels that are rick, so stored on their side, so the liquid touches all parts of the barrel. Many distilleries all around the world are more commonly switching to palletized barrels. Yeah. It's cheaper and easier and more efficient to build. However, you miss contact with parts of the barrel, so you might not get that full spectrum of flavors from the oak. We also hand rotate our barrels for consistency within those warehouses, and we age for between 6 and 8 years, really targeting right around that 7-year target is really where we think the flavor is just absolutely amazing. So that being said, we took fully matured Maker's Mark, cask strength, those barrels, and we rotated them into our limestone cellar. So in 2010, I mentioned that we created our first innovation, which was Maker's Mark 46. And Maker's Mark 46 relies on cool temperature to make it. We were only able to make Maker's Mark 46 in the wintertime because that's when it's cool. Here in Kentucky. The volume of that started to grow. We needed to be able to make it year round. So we did the most American thing that we could think of, and we dynamited the side of a hill to create the first bourbon whiskey cellar in the U.S. That was in 2016. And we said, this is such a unique environment. What would happen if we took our fully matured barrels and we put them in that cellar? And that created Maker's Mark Cellar Aged. And Maker's Mark Cellar Aged is 2025 release. This will be hitting in Australia coming November. And this features some of the oldest marks coming out of our distillery. So it is a blend of 11, 13, and 14-year-old whiskey. So 74% of an 11-year, 10% of a 13-year, and 16% of a 14-year.
That's
and
amazing.
Really, really unique. And the flavor vision for this is to create a version of Maker's Mark that is dark, rich, and complex, but that doesn't have bitterness.
Yeah.
And that cellar, what it technically does for you is the temperature is held much like it would be in Scotland, 10 degrees Celsius or less year round. So it slows down those additive mechanisms that come from the cask, additive in terms of the tannic additive. But you're still going to get oxidative reactions that are going to occur. So oxidation is a process in which flavors are destroyed and new flavors are created. So think of it as some of your esters, those fruity notes are going to transform into a different type of fruity note. You're going to see some caramelization reactions occur. So those caramel notes, you're going to get layers and depth. That richness is really going to develop, and you're going to get some mellowing of the spirit. So it's going to have a very different flavor profile. So that's what I'd like us to taste now.
All right.
This is also at cask strength, 56.45% alcohol by volume.
I'm excited to taste this.
Wow. It noses so much differently.
Well, it doesn't hit you in the face, as I say, with that alcohol kind of, as this one did.
And the fruitiness is a really, at least for me, it's really prevalent on the nose. Yeah.
To me, the fruitiness really pops out. So it's an interesting, bright, citrusy type of cherry that is expressed in cask strength. But you can see where the process of oxidation has really changed it here. It's more of like a dark, cordial type of cherry that's really being expressed.
Yeah, it's really fruity.
Like a plum, almost like or a dark stone fruit kind of.
Yeah, like a fig.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
That is
Pair
so
it with some
fun.
figs.
And so by having it in a cellar does it spend its whole life in the cellar? It starts as Makers from normal
It
root
starts
house?
as cask strength Maker's Mark, so it spends the first half of its life, so between 6 and 8 years in a traditional warehouse, and then it rotates for the remainder of its life into the cellar.
Great. Amazing. And so then, and I suppose like what you had always done with Makers, it's tasting it and seeing when it's ready to go.
And each year we change the blend of this. So it will always be between 11 and 14 years of blends that go in, but we want to show what the cellaring technique can actually mean for flavor. So 23 was different from 24, which is different from 25. And that's on purpose because we're trying to show all the flavors that exist in cask strength Maker's Mark, but we're really pulling them and exaggerating them in unique and different ways each year.
Amazing. And then how does the blending process go in terms of trying to establish what percentage of each of the different ages you want to use? How does that?
Well, there's a very small blending group. So it's myself, our lead blender, Beth Buckner, and we have one other person on our team, Ryan, and we all get together and we fight for about 2 weeks.
What a great fight. I want to be part of that fight.
It's actually quite a fun discussion where the best idea wins, where we'll all create a couple of different blends, then we'll blind them, and then we'll go through and taste them. And whiskey does have a way of developing as the casks marry together. So we'll taste them originally, and then we'll taste them after a week, and then we'll taste them after 2 weeks, taste them after 3 weeks, and then we say, okay, this is going to be the final spirit. So that's how we pick. I must say that Beth Buckner has won the past 3 years. So.
It's a one-sided fight.
Unfortunately, she's very good.
How long between when you pick the end one and that, like, do you retaste it a couple of days later before you come to the final decision?
Yeah. We do. And then we also bring in Rob Samuels, who's our managing director and grandson of the founders, and he also has a say.
Make sure to go ahead. All right, one last question before we're going to wrap up, because we've already used so much of your time already, Blake, but how old have you tasted in terms of what the cellar can do? And like, because I'm curious about when you go through this process, there must be a cap to when you start to edge towards this, tannic overaging that must happen at some point. But how old have you got in the cellar? What have you tasted? Is there something down the track that might be older still? Is there people who are interested in those high age statements, whether they're right or wrong? How long can this process go?
Well, that's a great question. This does actually feature the oldest whiskeys that we currently have in the distillery. Now, we do still have some that are still aging because we're still learning. You guys are going on the learning process with us. And we think that with the current process that we're doing, taking between 6 and 8 years and rotating into the cellar, around 15 to 17 years before we'll start to see that inflection point where it'll start to dip down and we get too much of the oak and tannin. But we haven't found the inflection point yet. That doesn't mean it's not there. We just haven't found it yet. But this is the oldest of the whiskeys that we have within the distillery. So we're really excited to showcase that this year.
That's so exciting. And we're so grateful that you shared it with us today.
Yeah,
so,
amazing.
Yeah, thank you very much. And cheers.
Absolutely.
Cheers, Blake.
Cheers,
Thanks
guys.
for coming on. Thanks for listening. Make sure you're connected with us on TikTok, Instagram and YouTube, and stay connected with us by clicking subscribe on your favourite podcast app.